Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Chuck and Plothless sent me a link to this blog posting. It is actually something that I saw a few days earlier, I just kind of had forgot about, but it's a very interesting format of a Dear Silver letter. So it's a kind of an intriguing and original kind of look at the topic. But this comes to us from goldsilver.com, and when you see things like this, you have to sort of consider the source and consider the purpose or even agenda that could be tied to something like this. So it's, I think in cases like this, we got to kind of be careful with what information is provided. Always question and not take anything for a grain of salt. But I think there's going to be some interesting information in here as we sift through that, as opposed to other aspects of it that may be a little bit more bullish on silver than maybe most of us realize or what we understand it to be. So let's take a look here. This is from Jeff Clark, the senior analyst, and this is from his point of view, writing a letter to silver. What she told him when he wrote to her. So silver is a female in this particular case. So he wrote to Silver last week and she answered back, and he wants to share the correspondence. So we'll read it from his perspective here. Dear Silver, I'm a big fan. You offer so many important benefits to an investor and at such a low price. You're a permanent store of value. You're nobody else's liability. So I know when I buy you, I'm not relying on anyone else to live up to their end of the bargain in a crisis. You are available in sizes that make you affordable for everyone and have been used as money for thousands of years. All that is exactly right. I agree with that 100%. You're the history and you're the future, which is why it's amazing to me you're so unappreciated in the present. I'm incredibly excited that I get the opportunity to acquire all your powerful attributes at a 70% discount from your record high set to this day 8 years ago. Especially, this is on the 25th of April when the letter was written, especially when all the reasons I bought you at $40 are even more relevant today than back then. I fully understand the explosive potential you hold, but I have to admit the way can sometimes be frustrating. And we covered this in a very recent previous video where I talked about why is silver underperforming. So the question is your price weakness almost over, or is it here to stay? Jeff Clark, a devoted silver investor. Now, that's where I disagree with him because he's talking about it as an investment, but that's notwithstanding, I've covered that many times. Here's her polite response. The lovely Mrs. Silver says, Dear Mr. Clark, I understand your frustration. The past 8 years have not been fun, but I have good news for you and your fellow investors. Hedgers. Things will soon change, and when they do, I can assure you that you will be very happy with me. Here are 5 things I would like you to know. I am money no matter what. And he recognized that in his question to her, but she goes on to say, buy me in physical form, and you get benefits most other assets don't offer. I have no counterparty or default risk. Very true. If you hold the real me, you don't need a paper contract to make you whole or a middleman to make you good on what someone else owes. I am a financial asset that is not simultaneously some other entity's liability. I don't require the backing of any bank or government. In the big picture, this gives you a tremendous edge. I agree with that. Next, I am a tangible hedge against all forms of hacking and cybercrime. There's no erasing a silver eagle coin. That's right. Even if you melt it down, the silver that's contained in that coin is still there. I can't be created out of thin air and thus depreciated like paper, currency, or cryptocurrency. That's true. However, I will say that there's been more silver mined in the 20th and 21st centuries than any other time in history. In fact, the amount of silver mined during that period far surpasses all the other mining all throughout the history before. I am private and discreet. You have to pay taxes on my gain, of course, but if you want some privacy or confidentiality, I can provide that. That's very true. Now, here's her argument against gold. I am more affordable to buy than gold. Very true. I have many more purchase options. You say there are 50 ways to leave your lover. I say there are 50 ways to buy me. Yeah, well, and there it kind of goes into it. There's definitely different ways to buy it. And a lot of that probably has to do with different sizes and affordability options. I am more practical to sell. If you have a small financial need, just sell a few ounces of me instead of gold, since I come in smaller denominations. That's true. However, I venture to say that if you go to an LCS, if they had to choose between silver and gold, they would probably would choose gold, in my view, but they wouldn't necessarily turn away silver. However, there are times certain silver coins or aspects they would, because they have so much of it. It's probably safe to say that no one has enough gold, especially in LCS, that can't be made liquid. So I do disagree with that particular point. Next, I am more practical to sell. If you have a small financial need, just sell a few ounces instead. I talked about that. My premiums might be higher than gold. I'm glad that Mrs. Silver recognizes that, because that is very true, that they are higher than gold. But that actually holds a hidden layer of extra potential profit for you. And that might be stretching it a bit. I don't know that I buy that. There's a link there, but we don't want to go into the rabbit hole for that, because depending on what that says. But there is, I guess, depending on how you do it or the kind of silver you buy, that may be true. But I think for more or less, I would say that probably buying silver and gold are not about profit. It's about preservation. Next, I offer more affordable options for collectible metal than that offer a potentially higher return than standard bullion. Yes, that's true. For a collectible coins, there's a lot of silver options out there with very high premiums. It is a gamble, but it's for sure. If you know how to play that side and know how to flip, especially when a series is hot, then yes, there are certainly ways. And I guarantee you, somebody that's a collector out there that maybe has a limited budget that sees the potential in a flip for a 1 ounce silver coin that has $100 premium above and beyond the price of silver, they're more likely to buy that than the gold option. And especially if they are a hardcore collector, or they know how to resell it for even more profit. We'll see. And let's not forget, the monetary history equates me with money. I have been used in coinage more often than gold. Very true. Excellent point. Silver has been used in coinage more often than gold. Yes, that's right. And especially more widespread use. The historical association between silver and money is still found in some languages today. The French word for silver is argent, and the same word is used for money. The Romans used the word argentarius to mean banker or silver trader. Also, plata is Spanish for silver, and that's also synonymous with money. I appear in the Bible 331 times. As biblical scholar Lustin Rosiora points out, silver and money are many times the same word in both original biblical languages, Old Testament Hebrew and New Testament Greek. And I didn't realize that. That makes sense, right? Everyone talks about the gold standard, but in the United States, the original standard was a bimetallic one. That included me. Exactly right. In fact, William Jennings Bryan talked about that in his famous Cross of Gold speech. Very good. You automatically get all these advantages with me, many of which could be critical in the next crisis. And as you rightly noted, you currently get from 70% less than you could have just 8 years ago. That's right. Number 2, I am dirt cheap with life-changing upside. I'm the most undervalued asset you can buy today. I don't know that that's really true. I think it's. I really don't know if that's true. I would say it's maybe slightly undervalued compared to inflation, compared to the rate of inflation, but not totally. I talked about that in my prior video as well. But silver gives us proof. First, in relation to the stock market, I'm actually cheaper to buy now relative to the S&P 500 than I was during the depths of the Great Recession. Okay, there we go. Ratio is now silver deeply undervalued relative to the S&P 500. To simply match my price relative to the stock market in 2011, it would have to trade nearly 8 times higher. Right? Okay. And look at my price relative to my cousin gold. I'm cheaper now than I have been in the past 26 years. We also talked about the gold to silver ratio and how I don't think we'll ever get back to the average. Even the average, I think, is probably close to unattainable. There, we may get back to that average, but I think that even 60 to 1 may be a stretch, but we'll see. I think the next time the metals do go up, we'll see it tighten up some, and we could meet that average again. And there's more significant than you realize. Check out how I outperform gold once the gold to silver falls from the 80 plus range. There's that chart that shows silver to gold there. All right. And then since 1995, the GSR has hit or exceeded 80 on 5 occasions. In the 4 prior instances, I outgained gold by a wide margin as the ratio fell. In some instances, my outperformance was by a factor of 3 or 4. And that is interesting when you take a look at that. But I think in today's industrial, biomedical, and a wide variety of uses in that way, and silver as being a commodity, it may not necessarily, I think the rules have changed to a point, and I don't think that Mrs. Silver is factoring that in. You also see the current GSR as higher now than the 4 prior occasions, meaning that any reversion to the mean behavior could lead to bigger percentage gains than I've lost in the past. Very well could, but I don't necessarily think that it is, because the situation is more unique now. Finally, notice that once a ratio reserved in every instance except for one, it fell out below the average. That is to say, it's finally noticed that the ratio reversed in every instance except one, sending the price significantly higher, and took multiple years to fully play out. And it's all this to say that if you own me, you are set up perfectly for the next wealth transfer. This is all very compelling, especially when my friend Mike Maloney says I will soar in the next crisis. And then there you go. It's kind of pointing back to somebody who has been a little bit too bullish. Maybe that's putting it friendly. Some may say the silver pumpers out there that kind of make these claims where it's going to soar. But I don't think we should go there. I really don't think we should go there. There's a lot of different things. I think 2011 and 1980 were anomalies, but I do think we see new floors where the bottom, we won't see it go below this particular period. We'll see how it goes. Number 3, my price lags gold, then passes it. My price doesn't always shoot up when gold starts a new bull market. In spite of the fact that I almost always gain more than gold before the uptrend is over. And that's kind of piggy-tailing or coat-tailing on the previous with the gold to silver ratio. So if it goes up, well, then you get a bigger gains than gold is, because gold is more stable. Gold is much more of a stable asset and hedge, and typically it doesn't have the volatility. So just as Mrs. Silver talks about these bull markets, what's happening now with the price as a lag and how it will gain, that doesn't necessarily, it can also lose just as much. So in that way, it's more volatile on the other. So as the kind of coattail ride, or go on the coattails of what they're talking about earlier here with the gold to silver ratio, when that decreases, obviously that means it's outperforming when it tightens up. But it could also widen again, or both metals could drop the same, and you could lose more. But it's kind of less likely to happen with gold and silver. Number 4, manipulations can't last forever. And this is another area you have to be very careful, because how much can manipulation be proven? Many in this community believe it's the prices being suppressed almost wholly by manipulation, which I don't buy at all. There's never been any proof that manipulation has had as big effect as many claim in this community. And so she says, I know it's frustrating to watch my price along with many other assets be manipulated, but there's something important you should know about this. Historically, unequivocally shows that manipulations never last. They always fail regardless of the asset, time period, or culprits. And maybe that's really kind of part and parcel, because I think if you take that statement on the short-term outlook, then yes, it's probably. I'm sure the manipulation's tried. I don't deny that there's some manipulation going on, but it's not powerful enough to really have a long-term effect. And by long-term, I'm meaning even within trading days, even within trading hours. They end for different reasons, depending on the nature of the manipulations at the time, and there are a couple of specific reasons they'll end around this time, too. First, even though conspirators today use fraudulent paper forms of me to carry out their manipulations, some physical metal is always required to put on these trades. And at some point in the not-too-distant future, there won't be enough of me to go around. My supply is disappearing as we speak, and this will diminish the number and effect of the manipulations that can take place. I don't know if I agree with that sentence. There is a link there to go into the rabbit hole, but I don't know if we really need to go there. But I will, generally disagree with that. The supply is actually increasing, just because silver is being used in industry does not mean it can't be reconstituted. In fact, if the price goes up high enough, it will become economically viable to do so, for sure. Second, while the manipulators have some control today, the next crisis will overwhelm them. That's because it will be of epic proportions. We're in the middle of the everything bubble, and once it breaks down, there will be millions of more investors and trillions more currency chasing after me than there were in the 1970s. This is taken direct from the Mike Maloney school of thought, and that basically they think that the next crisis is going to be just almost cataclysmic. But I don't necessarily agree with that. And especially considering what most of us thought after the economic crisis and what was happening with quantitative easing. Many of us thought it was going to happen back in 2013 or 14. It didn't. And with now economic policies changing, there's actual real economic growth happening now. That's happening from Main Street as opposed to Wall Street, which means that it could maybe suppress any massive downturn. That's not to say there won't be a downturn and there won't be a crisis or another recession, but I believe that we may have staved off another disaster. If we kept going the way we were going, certainly it will be. Now, the debt is a different thing. And that's something that they've been able to continue to kick down the road for a long time. How much longer will it take before that catches up with us? Who knows? But we know deficit spending has got to stop. Both political parties here in the United States, and I'm sure and around the world and other governments, they're both to blame for that. Not only will everybody want a piece of me, there will be many entities that could engulf my market just like in the past. In other words, manipulators will run out of physical silver to play their games with. The effects of the next crisis will overrun them, especially once inflation kicks in. Everything changes at that point, and anyone trying to manipulate my price will be destroyed. Remember, I've been around a lot longer than them. In all honesty, it will be quite fun to watch and highly profitable for you and your friends. Well, and that's just it. You should never look at silver as a profit potential. That means that you're looking at it as an investment, because you will be sorely disappointed when a lot of this doesn't come true. Number 5, I'm on the launch pad and ready to ignite. Already, I'm kind of disagreeing with number 5 just from this headline. There are numerous catalysts that will and ignite my price. As you showed in your presentation, once the bull market gets underway, the tiny size of my market will cause my price to explode. It won't take much cash flooding in to send my price to the moon. Oh boy. Here's a fun example. Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, could use this cash to gobble up any registered ounce of me at the comments as the tiniest appetizer. Warren Buffett's cash versus registered COMEX silver. Yes, the graph is to scale, and this is just one company out of thousands with enough cash in hand to easily gobble me up. Imagine the hundreds of hedge funds, thousands of institutions, billions of investors, and trillions of currency units wanting a piece of me. The subsequent rise of my price will take your breath away. Well, and basically he's saying that as far as what's in the COMEX registered silver stocks is not enough of people. But the thing is, you have to assume that that's what people want. I don't know that necessarily that would be the case, especially here in the West, and especially given the situation. Now, gold may be another story, or a combination of both, but We'll see. We'll see. I don't know that I would necessarily believe that they're going to automatically make that correlation. A lot of them will take out cash. I mean, just because there's a crisis that happens doesn't mean it's going to just be instant demand for silver. And that's the thing that people got to realize. I think it may take a while. All you have to do is hold on and make sure you own enough of me. When demand skyrockets again like it has in the past, when my rollless money reasserts itself, I will trade at much higher levels. And don't worry, keep stacking is the close of this from Mrs. Silver, or Miss Silver. I don't know, is Silver married? I'm going to have to ask her. I'm kind of curious. Might want to take her out on a date. My advice is to not fret about the lackadaisical price behavior. You already know from history how the story ends. I will sell up multiples of what I sell for today. In fact, I offer to bet my cousin Gold that I'll outperform him. Okay, so Gold is a dude. Before this cycle is over. He declined because he knows what my price can do in the right kind of environment, the very kind we'll see ahead. The clock is ticking. Don't set yourself up for regret when my price leaves $15 in the dust. Make sure you own enough of me to both weather the coming storm as well as log massive profits. Sooner or later it's coming. Your friend Silver. Well, Silver is a little bit self-absorbed, but I would say, because my feeling is that Mrs. Silver or Miss Silver sells herself. Now, I think that this version of Mrs. Silver is a bit bloviated, a bit, and I would say that you just hold on to silver so that you can preserve your wealth, because in the end, that's what's going to do. And there will be times where it spikes up, and there will be times of recession. And keep in mind, if there's a recession or an economic downturn, there is certainly a chance that silver could take off a bit and go up and climb up higher. But why and for how long? Who knows? And I would even say that in that time, if you can afford to even keep it during those times, it may not be a bad idea. But you could also make a little money on it. But if you go into it with the mindset that's a hedge, it's a preservation of wealth, and not with this idea of being profit, you won't be disappointed, and you'll understand silver a little bit better. Interesting perspective. I agree with some of what has been said in this response from silver, and I do agree with the question in some sense as well, with some of the aspects and properties of silver. So overall, good posting here, and post your thoughts below about silver, and if silver could talk, what she would respond to you, or what you think she should respond to you in a letter. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching. Thanks again to Chuck and Plata for forwarding this along to me. And I would like to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.